The Yellow Face. Sherlock Holmes did not often exercise just for fun. He was very strong and a very good boxer. But he thought exercise without purpose was a waste of energy. He only moved quickly when it was for his work. Then he could work without stopping. He ate very little, lived a simple life, and had almost no bad habits. Sometimes, when he had no cases and nothing in the newspapers, he used cocaine because he was bored. One day in early spring, Holmes agreed to take a walk with me in the park. The trees were just starting to show green leaves. We walked together for 2 hours, mostly in silence, and returned to Baker Street at about 5 o'clock. Our page boy opened the door. "Excuse me, sir," he said. "A gentleman came to see you." Holmes looked at me and said, "So much for our walk. And is he gone now?" "Yes, sir." "Didn't you ask him inside?" "Yes, sir. He came in." "How long did he wait?" "Half an hour, sir. He was very restless, walking up and down the room. I could hear him. At last he came out and shouted, 'Is that man never coming?' I told him to wait a little longer, but he said, 'I feel choked in here. I will wait outside in the air. I'll come back soon.' Then he left, and nothing I said could stop him." "Well, you did your best," said Holmes, as we went into our room. "But this is annoying, Watson. I needed a case badly, and this sounds important." "Ah, that's not your pipe on the table. He must have left it here. It is a fine old pipe with a long amber mouthpiece. He must have been very upset to leave behind something he values." "How do you know he values it?" I asked. "The pipe cost about 7 shillings when it was new. But look, it has been mended twice with silver bands, once in the wood and once in the amber. Each repair cost more than the pipe itself. That means the man loves this pipe and prefers to fix it rather than buy a new one." "Anything else?" I asked. Holmes tapped the pipe with his finger. "Pipes can tell a lot about a person. This one shows that the owner is strong, left-handed, has good teeth, is not very careful, and has enough money." "How do you know he has money?" I asked. Holmes put some tobacco from the pipe in his hand. "This is Grosvenor mixture, 8 pence an ounce. He could buy cheaper tobacco just as good, but he does not need to save money." "And the other details?" I asked. "Look here. The pipe is burned on one side. That comes from lighting it at gas lamps, not matches. He always held the right side of the pipe to the flame, which means he is left-handed. And look, he is bitten through the amber. Only a strong man with good teeth could do that. But wait, I hear him on the stairs. Now we shall meet the owner himself." A moment later, a tall young man came in. He was dressed simply in a dark gray suit and carried a brown hat in his hand. I thought he was about 30, though he was really older. I beg your pardon, he said nervously. I should have knocked. The truth is, I am very upset. He touched his forehead like a man in pain, then dropped into a chair. You have not slept for a night or two, said Holmes kindly. That is worse for the nerves than work or even pleasure. How can I help you? I want your advice. I don't know what to do. My whole life feels broken. You want to employ me as a detective? Not only that. I want your opinion as a wise man. Please tell me what I should do next. God help me, I need advice. He spoke quickly, in short sentences, as if it was very hard for him to talk at all. It is a very delicate matter, he said. No man wants to talk about his wife to strangers. It feels terrible. But I must. I can't go on like this. My dear Mr. Grant Monroe, began Holmes. The man jumped from his chair. What? You know my name? Holmes smiled. If you wish to stay unknown, you should not write your name inside your hat, or at least. Don't turn it toward the person you are speaking with. But don't worry. My friend and I have heard many secrets in this room. And often we have brought peace to troubled people. I hope we can do the same for you. Please, tell me the facts quickly. Monroe rubbed his forehead again, struggling to begin. He was a proud, private man, but then he suddenly decided to speak. The facts are these, Mr. Holmes, he said. I have been married for 3 years. In that time, my wife and I have loved each other deeply. We never had a disagreement. But since last Monday, everything has changed. There is suddenly a wall between us. She has some secret, and I know nothing about it. We are separated in spirit, and I must know why. But one thing is certain, my wife Effie still loves me. Please don't doubt that. She loves me with all her heart, and I feel it more than ever. I don't argue about this. A man knows when a woman loves him. But until this secret is explained, we cannot be truly happy again. Then please give me the facts, Mr. Monroe, said Holmes impatiently. I will tell you what I know about Effie's past. She was already a widow when I first met her, though she was still young, only 25. Her name then was Mrs. Hebron. She had gone to America when she was young and lived in Atlanta. There she married Mr. Hebron, a lawyer with a good job. They had one child. But then there was a terrible outbreak of yellow fever. Both her husband and child died from it. I have seen the death certificate with my own eyes. After this, Effie hated America and came back to England. She went to live with her unmarried aunt in Pinner, Middlesex. Her husband had left her well off, with about £4,500. He had invested the money well, so it gave her a good yearly income. She had only been in Pinner for 6 months when I met her. We fell in love and married a few weeks later. I am a hop merchant, and I earn about £700 or £800 a year. So together we had plenty of money. We rented a nice little villa in Norbury for £80 a year. It was very country-like, though close to town. There was an inn and 2 houses a little above us, and one cottage on the other side of the field in front of us. Apart from those, there were no houses until halfway to the station. My work sometimes took me into London, but in summer I was more free. And then we lived happily in our country home. There was never the slightest shadow between us until this dreadful business began. There is something else I should tell you. When we married, Effie gave all her money to me. I did not really want it, because I knew it could be dangerous if my business ever failed. But she insisted, and so it was done. About 6 weeks ago, she came to me and said, "Jack, when you took my money, you said that if I ever needed some, I could ask for it." "Of course," I replied. "It's all yours." "Well," she said, "I want £100. I was very surprised. I thought she only wanted it for a new dress or something small. "What for?" I asked. "Oh," she laughed, "you said you were only my banker. And bankers don't ask questions. If you really mean it, you shall have the money," I said. "Yes, I really mean it." "And you won't tell me why you want it?" "Perhaps someday, but not now, Jack." So I gave her a check. It was the first time there had ever been a secret between us. I didn't ask again, and I almost forgot about it. Maybe it has nothing to do with what happened later, but I think it is worth mentioning. Now, let me tell you about the cottage near our house. There is only a field between us, but to reach it you must go along the road and then down a lane. Behind it there is a small wood of pine trees. I like to walk there because I love trees. The cottage had been empty for 8 months. It was a pretty 2-story house with an old porch and honeysuckle growing around it. Many times I thought it would make a lovely home. Last Monday evening, I was walking that way when I saw a van leaving the lane. There were carpets and furniture lying outside the porch. Clearly, the cottage had been rented at last. I stopped, like any curious man, and looked at the place, wondering what kind of people had moved in. As I looked, I suddenly saw a face at an upstairs window. I don't know why, Mr. Holmes, but that face sent a cold feeling through me. I was not close enough to see the details, but there was something strange and unnatural about it. I tried to move nearer, but the face disappeared very suddenly, almost as if it had been pulled away into the darkness. I stood there for 5 minutes, thinking about what I had seen. I couldn't even tell if it was a man or a woman, but I clearly remember the color. The face was pale, chalky white. It looked stiff and unnatural, almost like a mask. I felt so disturbed that I decided to meet the new people. I knocked at the cottage door. It was quickly opened by a tall, thin woman with a hard, unfriendly face. "What do you want?" she asked sharply in a northern accent. "I live across the field," I said, pointing to my house. "I saw you had just moved in, and I thought perhaps I could help." "We'll ask you if we need you," she said, and shut the door in my face. Annoyed at her rudeness, I walked home. All evening I tried to think of other things, but my mind always went back to the pale face at the window and the woman's rough words. I decided not to tell Effie about the face because she is nervous and sensitive, and I didn't want to frighten her. But before I went to sleep, I told her that the cottage was now occupied. She gave no answer. I usually sleep very well, and my family often jokes that nothing can wake me at night. But on that night, I did not sleep so deeply. But on that night, I did not sleep so deeply. Half asleep, I felt that something was happening in the room. Slowly, I realized that my wife was dressing. She put on her coat and hat. I was about to whisper something when I opened my eyes a little and looked at her face in the candlelight. I was shocked. She looked pale, she was breathing fast, and she kept looking at me to check if I was awake. I had never seen her look like that before. Then, thinking I was still asleep, she left the room very quietly. A moment later, I heard the front door creak. I sat up in bed. I checked my watch. It was 3 o'clock in the morning. Why would my wife go outside at that hour? For 20 minutes I sat thinking about it. I could find no answer. Then I heard the door close again and her steps on the stairs. "Where have you been, Effie?" I asked as she came in. She jumped and gave a little cry. That shocked me more than everything else, because she looked guilty. My wife had always been open and honest. And now she was sneaking into the room, frightened of her own husband. "You are awake, Jack," she said nervously. "I thought nothing could wake you." "Where have you been?" I asked again, this time more serious. She tried to smile, but her hands shook as she took off her coat. It is strange, I know. I felt as if I was choking, and I needed some fresh air. I thought I might faint if I didn't go outside. I stood at the door for a few minutes, and now I feel fine again. But as she spoke, she never looked at me. Her voice did not sound natural. I knew she was lying. I said nothing, but I turned away, my heart full of doubts and suspicions. What was my wife hiding? Where had she really gone? I could not rest until I found out. I lay awake all night, thinking of many possible reasons, but none of them made sense. The next day, I should have gone to London for business, but I was too upset. My wife was also troubled, and she could see that I did not believe her story. At breakfast, we hardly spoke. After the meal, I went out for a walk to clear my head. I walked as far as the Crystal Palace, spent an hour there, and returned to Norbury by 1 o'clock. On my way back, I passed the little cottage. I stopped to look at the windows, hoping to see the strange face I had seen before. Then the door opened, and my wife came out. I was speechless, but she was even more shocked when she saw me. For a second, she looked as if she wanted to run back inside. But then she came forward, very pale, her smile false and her eyes full of fear. "Ah, Jack," she said. "I came here to see if I could help our new neighbors." "Why do you look at me like that? You are not angry, are you?" "So," I said, "this is where you went last night." "What do you mean?" she asked quickly. "You came here." "I know it." "Who are these people that you must visit them at 3 in the morning?" "I have not been here before," she said. "How can you lie to me?" I cried. "Even your voice sounds different. Have I ever kept secrets from you?" "I will go into that cottage, and I will find the truth." "No, Jack. Please, no," she gasped, suddenly very emotional. She grabbed my arm and pulled me back strongly. "I beg you not to go in," she cried. "I promise that I will tell you everything one day. But if you enter that house now, it will bring only misery." She clung to me desperately, trying to stop me. "Trust me, Jack," my wife cried. "Just this once, please trust me. You will never regret it. I would never hide anything from you, except for your own good. Our whole future depends on this. If you come home with me, everything will be fine. But if you enter that cottage, then our marriage is finished." She spoke with such feeling and such despair that I stopped and did not go through the door. At last I said, "I will trust you, but only on one condition. This mystery must end today. You may keep your secret, but you must promise. No more secret visits at night, no more actions hidden from me. I will forgive the past, but only if there will be no more secrets in the future." She gave a deep sigh of relief. "I knew you would trust me. I will do exactly as you say. Please, let us go home." She pulled me by the sleeve, and I followed her away from the cottage. As we walked, I looked back. At the window above, I saw again that strange, yellow face watching us. What connection could there be between that person and my wife? And how could the rough woman I had seen before be involved with her? It was a terrible mystery, and I knew I would never feel at peace until I solved it. For 2 days I stayed at home. My wife seemed to keep her promise, for, as far as I knew, she did not leave the house. But on the third day I discovered the truth. Her solemn promise was not strong enough to stop her from following this secret power that drew her away from me. That day I went into town, but I came home earlier than usual. I entered the house at 2:40 instead of 3:36. At once the maid ran into the hall, looking surprised and afraid. "Where is your mistress?" I asked. "I think she has gone for a walk," she said. Suspicion filled my mind. I hurried upstairs to check if my wife was in the house. She was not. Looking out of the window, I saw the maid herself running across the field towards the cottage. Then I understood. My wife had gone to the cottage, and she had told the maid to warn her if I came back. Burning with anger, I rushed out across the field, determined to end the matter forever. On the road, I saw my wife and the maid hurrying back, but I did not stop to speak to them. The secret was inside the cottage, and I was ready to face it. I swore that, whatever happened, it would not remain hidden. Without knocking, I opened the door and entered. The ground floor was quiet. In the kitchen, a kettle boiled on the fire, and a big black cat slept in a basket. But there was no sign of the rough woman. I searched another room, also empty. Then I ran upstairs, but the two rooms there were empty as well. The whole house was deserted. The furniture was cheap and ugly. Except for one room, the very room with the window where I had seen the yellow face. That room was well decorated and comfortable. My anger grew stronger when I saw, on the mantelpiece, a large photograph of my wife. It was the very photo I had asked her to take only 3 months ago. I searched until I was sure the house was empty. Then I returned home, feeling a heavy sadness I had never known before. My wife came into the hall as I entered, but I was too angry to speak. I pushed past her and went into my study. She followed me before I could close the door. "I am sorry I broke my promise, Jack," she said. "But if you knew everything, I am sure you would forgive me." "Then tell me everything," I said. "I cannot, Jack. I cannot," she cried. "Until you tell me who lives in that cottage. And why you gave them your photograph, there can be no trust between us," I said. Then I left the house. That was yesterday, Mr. Holmes. I have not seen my wife since, and I know nothing more about this strange business. This is the first shadow between us, and it has shaken me so much that I do not know what to do. This morning I thought of you, and I hurried here to ask your advice. If I have not made some part clear, please ask me. But above all, tell me quickly what I should do, because this misery is more than I can bear. Holmes and I listen with the greatest interest to this strange story. The man spoke in a nervous, broken way, like someone deeply troubled. Holmes sat in silence for some time, his chin on his hand, lost in thought. At last he said, "Tell me, can you swear that the face at the window was a man's face?" "Each time I saw it, I was some distance away, so I cannot be sure." "But you were strongly disturbed by it?" Yes. The face was an unnatural color, and the features looked stiff and strange. When I came closer, it disappeared suddenly. How long ago did your wife ask you for 100 pounds? Nearly 2 months, he answered. Have you ever seen a photo of her first husband? Asked Holmes. No. There was a big fire in Atlanta soon after he died. All her papers were burned, said Mr. Grant Monroe. But you said she had a death certificate. Yes, she asked for another copy after the fire. Did you ever meet anyone who knew her in America? No. Did she ever say she wanted to go back there? No. Did she get letters from America? No. Thank you. I need to think for a little while, said Holmes. If the cottage is really empty now, it may be difficult. But I believe the people there knew you were coming, so they left before you arrived yesterday. If so, they may be back now, and we can solve this quickly. Please return to Norbury. Look carefully at the windows of the cottage. If you think someone lives there, don't break in. Send me a telegram instead. Watson and I will come within an hour. Then we will soon find the truth. And if the cottage is still empty, then I will come tomorrow and we will talk again. Goodbye. And, most important, don't worry before you really know the reason to worry. After Monroe left, Holmes turned to me. This looks bad, Watson. What do you think? It sounds serious, I said. Yes, I think it may be blackmail, Holmes answered. And who is the blackmailer? It must be the person who lives in the best room in the cottage, with her photograph on the fireplace. Honestly, Watson, that pale face at the window is fascinating. I would not miss this case for anything. You already have a theory? Yes, a temporary one. But I think it is right. I believe the woman's first husband is in that cottage. Why do you think so? Why else would she be so afraid that her new husband might go inside? Let me explain how I see it. This woman first married in America. Her husband became a bad man, or maybe he got a terrible illness, like leprosy, and lost his mind. She finally escaped from him. She came back to England, changed her name, and began a new life. She married again 3 years ago. She felt safe because she had shown her new husband a death certificate. She thought her first husband was gone. But then her first husband, or maybe a wicked woman who cares for him, found her. They wrote to her. They wanted money. She gave them 100 pounds to keep them quiet. But they came anyway. When her new husband told her that new people lived in the cottage, she knew it was them. That night, while her husband slept, she went to the cottage to beg them to leave her alone. She failed. The next morning she tried again, and her husband met her as she left. She promised not to return. But 2 days later she tried once more. She even brought a photograph, maybe because they demanded it. Then her maid told her that the master had come home. She knew he would go straight to the cottage. So she hurried the people out through the back door into the fir trees. That is why her husband found the house empty. But I think it will not be empty tonight when he looks again. What do you think of my theory, Watson? It is only guessing, I said. Yes, but it fits all the facts. If new facts come, we will change it. For now, we must wait for news from our friend at Norbury. We did not wait long. Just after tea, a telegram arrived. The cottage is still lived in. I saw the face again at the window. I will meet the 7 o'clock train and wait for you. When we stepped off the train, we saw Monroe on the platform. The station lamps showed his face. He was very pale and shaking. They are still there, Mr. Holmes, he said, gripping Holmes's arm. I saw lights in the cottage. Tonight we will end this mystery. What is your plan? Asked Holmes as we walked down the dark road. I will break into the house and see who is inside. I want you both as witnesses. Are you sure? Your wife asked you not to discover the truth. Yes, I am sure. Then I think you are right, Holmes said. Any truth is better than endless doubt. Let us go now. Of course, it is against the law. But I believe it is worth the risk. It was a very dark night. A light rain began to fall as we left the main road and walked into a narrow lane with deep ruts and hedges on both sides. Mr. Grant Monroe walked quickly in front, and we followed as best as we could. There are the lights of my house, he said, pointing to a small glow among the trees. And here is the cottage I am going to enter. We turned a corner and saw the building close to us. A yellow line of light showed that the door was not completely shut. One upstairs window was brightly lit. As we watched, we saw a dark shape move across the blind. There is the creature, cried Grant Monroe. You can see for yourselves. Someone is there. Now follow me, and we will soon know everything. We came to the door, but suddenly a woman stepped out of the shadows into the light. I could not see her face, but her arms were stretched out as if she was begging. For God's sake, don't, Jack, she cried. I knew you would come tonight. Please think again. Trust me once more, and you will never regret it. I have trusted you too long, Effie, he said sternly. Let me pass, my friends, and I will end this matter forever. He pushed her aside, and we went after him. He opened the door. An old woman ran forward to block the way, but he pushed her back. A moment later, we were all running upstairs. Grant Monroe rushed into the lighted room, and we followed. The room was warm and comfortable, for candles burned inside. In the corner, at a desk, sat what looked like a little girl. Her face was turned away, but we saw that she wore a red dress and long white gloves. Suddenly she turned around, and I cried out in shock. Her face was a strange pale color, with no expression at all. The mystery was solved at once. Holmes laughed, reached behind her ear, and pulled away a mask. Underneath was a little black girl, who laughed and showed her white teeth at our surprised faces. I laughed too, but Grant Monroe stood frozen, clutching his throat. "My God," he cried. "What does this mean?" "I will tell you," said Effie, as she entered with a proud but serious face. "You forced me to tell you, though I did not want to. My first husband died in Atlanta, but our child survived." "Your child?" She took a silver locket from her chest. "You have never seen this open." "I thought it could not open," said Monroe. She pressed a spring, and the locket opened. Inside was a picture of a handsome man, clearly of African descent. "That is John Hebron of Atlanta," she said. "He was a noble man, and I never regretted marrying him. But our child took after his side of the family. Little Lucy is even darker than her father was. But dark or fair, she is my dear daughter and my treasure." The child ran to her and held her dress. "When I left Lucy in America," she continued, "it was only because she was weak in health. She stayed with a loyal Scottish woman, once our servant. I never dreamed of denying her. But when I met you, Jack, and fell in love, I was afraid to tell you. I feared I would lose you. So, weak as I was, I hid the truth. For 3 years I kept her a secret, though I wrote often to the nurse. Finally, I longed too much to see her again. I sent money to bring her here and rented this cottage. I told the nurse to stay hidden, to keep Lucy inside by day, and to cover her face and hands when near the window. I feared gossip about a black child in the area. I was too cautious and too afraid of you finding out. But you saw me leave the house one night. Later you almost caught them, and now tonight you know the truth. I ask you, Jack, what will happen to us, my child and me?" She held her hands together and waited. For 10 long minutes Monroe was silent. Then he lifted the little girl, kissed her, and, still holding her, gave his other hand to his wife. "We can talk more comfortably at home," he said. "I am not a perfect man, Effie, but I think I am better than you believed." Holmes and I walked after them down the lane. Holmes touched my sleeve and whispered, "I think we are more useful in London than in Norbury." He said nothing more until late that night, when he was going to bed with a candle in his hand. "Watson," he said, "if you ever think I am too confident in my powers, just whisper Norbury to me. I will be very grateful."